Well, welcome back to another episode of Conflict in Cuisine with your hosts. I'm Seth Frantzman, and this is
Erica Schachne. Happy Sunday Fun Day.
I'm a senior Middle East correspondent at the Jerusalem Post, and Erica edits our award-winning magazine as well as our In Jerusalem supplement.
I do indeed. I just mentioned that it was Sunday Fun Day. I say that with a slightly ironic twist because we work on Sundays. But beyond that, Trump has issued a lot of tariffs. So a lot of countries are not feeling particularly fun right now. What say you, Seth?
So it's interesting. The tariffs came into force, or they're coming into force quite soon, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions about what are the tariffs, how they got to the numbers,
Right.
why they matter, and what. Of course, I guess because we're in Jerusalem, in the wonderful, beautiful hills of Jerusalem, what they might mean for Israel.
Right. And the average consumer. And all I know, the first I heard of it was the stock market freaking out. Every country in the world seems scared. Am I wrong in my assessment? I don't know. Trump can just change things on a dime. It's really interesting for someone to have so much power. Yeah.
All right. So first of all, what is it? What is a tariff? A tariff is what? It's something that's charged on foreign goods that are imported.
Right. Non-American cars, for example.
Right. And so, I guess the concept of the administration was that there's a deficit, a trade deficit or something.
Right.
And not only that, but that it's that Americans are importing a bunch of stuff,
Right.
and it's basically cheaper to buy foreign things,
Right.
like shirts made in Vietnam or
Right.
cars made in Germany or Japan,
Right.
than it is to buy American manufactured goods.
And we're undermining ourselves that way. So Trump is putting
Right.
America first.
That's right. Trump said America first. So the question is, do you think that this will work and bring them? Basically, their idea is you ratchet up the cost to import the thing, whether a car or whatever. And so, therefore, it encourages American companies to build more of their stuff at home as opposed to importing the cheap, pants or socks from abroad, because the socks, instead of being 50 cents now, are now $1.
Right.
Do you think that will work?
It's hard to say. I'm not an economic expert. First, I would want to know how good the product itself is. Are Americans going to want to buy Chryslers over Hondas? And
I don't think it's Hyundai. It sounds like Sunday. It's Hyundai.
Hyundai?
Yeah, I think it's technically Hyundai.
Okay, Hyundai, Toyota, whatever it is.
Right.
Are they going to want that? And will people go far to spend more? But probably not in this economy. Most people will not. And will people stop trading with us and find other alternatives? But it might work.
So what is the impact, on Israel? I heard that Netanyahu, who went to Hungary,
Right.
that he then
famously.
decided that he will just immediately jet over to the United States for his second visit in 2 months or so to meet Trump and basically try to get Israel to not be tariffed. Because Israel had sought to make sure that there are no tariffs on American goods.
Right. They very slickly, a few days before, eliminated all tariffs on American goods in Israel. So they thought they were home free, but we got a 17% tariff. So.
Right. So
Yeah.
they are going to try to get the United States or the Trump administration to say, well, we like Israel, so we'll just pretend that we didn't actually do that.
Right. And Netanyahu's going to go there, grease Trump a little bit. And he claims he's going at the invitation of Trump. So do you think Trump invited him on WhatsApp with a few emojis?
Yeah, that's a good question. It seems to me that since everyone else in the world seems to be a bit angry at these tariffs, and even America's closest allies, like Canada or the United Kingdom, which are members of what's called the Five Eyes Network.
But would you call Canada an ally at this point?
Well, it is traditionally a friend of the United States, so it's right there.
Okay, it's right there. It's in close proximity.
Yeah, and similar history. Right there's the. It was colonized by the United Kingdom. The
Right.
British, Great Britain,
Parts of it in France.
some French.
Right.
There was a French and Indian War that the Americans
Yes.
participated in.
Right. This is some great history, right?
Right. So Canada has cultural connections to the United States. And then, of course, they chose not to have a revolutionary war. They chose to just stay a colony for a while. And
They chose to be Canadian.
Right, it's a different trajectory, obviously, because there was a war of 1812 in which America actually invaded Canada a little bit, or I don't know, something.
We've been wanting to invade ever since.
Right, so
there's a bit of a superiority complex that Americans have over Canadians, I think.
I think Americans are, that's true, but also Canadians generally also have, they also have, let's say, a negative view of the United States in some cases, right? They think that Americans are brash and loud and annoying.
Right, I can't imagine why, but yeah, lately especially there's been tensions with a lot of liberal people in Canada finding fault with America. So we'll see what happens now. But anyway, we got on this because of, no, I was saying post-Trudeau. We'll see how, what direction it takes now, Canada. But
right, they're going to have an election.
Right.
But anyway, the point is that it was Trump's tariffs have angered and annoyed large swaths of the world, except for Israel, which is doing the opposite of what traditional U.S. allies are doing. They're not pushing back. Israel's saying, okay, we'll do whatever you want, just please don't tariff us.
That's what the UK did, really. That's why they got 10%, because before that, Keir Starmer really, I don't know if I'd say kissed up, but had a lovely, very complimentary visit with Trump.
What does the UK export to the United States?
I don't know, beans? What do they make?
Haggis. That's the number one export.
Scotch eggs.
Whiskey, probably.
Oh, but that's Scotland. Yeah, we're talking about UK. Absolutely whiskey.
I think Scotland is part of the UK.
Yeah,
still,
it is.
Right?
United Kingdom.
It has not yet seceded.
Yeah, there's no Northern Scotland.
Right. So they export beef and beans and sheep.
Union Jack flags.
Union Jack flags are very popular.
Yeah.
It's one of the main exports, especially in places like New York City, I think.
Right, and replicas of the crown jewels.
Replicas of the crown jewels. Oh, do they export corgis?
They should.
Right, because I feel like
that's Queen Elizabeth's favorite dog, right?
That's interesting. So the new king, does he have a favorite pet animal?
No, we haven't heard about that. Have you?
But if there was one, there would be a tariff on it.
Yeah, that's right. But only 10%.
That's a good question, though. For instance, like Prince Harry, why isn't there a tariff on him?
There should be. I mean,
or
he's taken himself out. Yeah.
Well, he wrote that book, Spare. I feel like there should be a very high tariff on that so we don't have to see it in stores anymore.
I agree, or if anyone ever buys it.
Right. Now, would the tariff apply to Meghan Markle?
Oh, that's a great
You're not a Meghan
question.
Markle fan, I guess.
No, I'm not.
You're more of a royalist.
I am more of a royalist, even though I am American, and I seem to think that I know what I'm talking about. But what really offended me about Meghan was, how do you go into a tradition that's thousands of years old and impose your own views on it and think it's going to change to be flexible toward you? So that's what I really do not like about her.
Yeah, they didn't seem to like her very much. But the royal family has a history, it seems, of not really getting along with some of the women that marry into the family, like Princess Di.
Well, I think a lot of families have a history of not getting along with women or men that marry in.
Right.
I mean, it's tough. You take one family tradition and meld it with another, and then you're really in the spotlight. And maybe these women are strong-willed, and they want to be able to wear red nail polish and be on Instagram, like Meghan. But, she bit off more than she could chew. She's a princess.
Speaking of people that have bitten off more than they could chew, the Houthis
yes, our favorite.
have been biting off more than they can chew in the Red Sea.
They claim they can chew a lot. They just claim a lot of things.
Right, and these are people that live in Yemen, and they've been fighting the United States and Saudi Arabia and Israel and
Saudi Arabia for years
else.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
And now the Americans have been bombing them.
Right, and Trump famously put up a video on social media on his Twitter of them taking down a Houthi gathering where I guess they were planning evil doings. Right,
that's the question, right? 3 weeks of bombing.
Right, and Houthis are like, we're fine. We attacked the warships. We attacked the USS Truman. But there's no way of knowing. They just wildly will say things.
Why do they get away with this?
Because they have such a hardscrabble image of this, little group that doesn't really matter. And they've had this for so long that people are like, oh, we don't really have to bother with them. But they really just won't stop. So, I mean, Trump is giving serious action, but they're not cowed, at least in their rhetoric. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the Houthis showed that they could fight the Saudis to a standstill, right, in Yemen. And they've been
powerful Saudis, yeah.
And they've been launching ballistic missiles at Israel, which cause millions of people that have to run to shelters or whatever every few
Right.
days or something. So they, I mean, if someone had told you a few years ago that millions of Israelis will be in shelters because of a group in Yemen, I don't think most people here would have.
No.
Right? It would seem like science fiction.
It would. I mean, so many things going on these days would, but I think they're just not afraid of anyone and they don't give up. So, they'll just throw a rocket at the most powerful country on earth,
If you had to look into, let's say, or flip a coin, or have one of those magic 8 balls or whatever, what would you think? I mean, do you think the Houthis will bend the knee, as they say, in the next few weeks or months, and say to the Trump administration, maybe via Iran or whatever, listen, we're open to some talks or whatever, a deal? Or is that just a lost cause and that Trump administration is just going to have to find some way to climb down from this?
Well, as the magic 8 ball would say, it is decidedly so. But I don't know. They'll take whatever line Iran tells them, I guess. But didn't Iran just say that the talks were just a joke that the U.S. is trying to have with them? And I don't know. Won't the U.S. just go after Iran? U.S. and Israel, and rather than try to have talks with them, what's the point? I mean, and then the Houthis will follow whatever line the Iranians take.
Right. I mean, the Houthis are like when you're playing Monopoly and you have to buy one of those crappy properties that's cheap.
Right, but
They're
they're
like a
really good. They make all the money.
You're saying they're like the Park Place on the board. They're not like right on the Reddit.
No, they're
or something.
Baltic. They're Baltic Avenue or even Tennessee Avenue. So you think they're cheap, but that's the one you always land on.
And then you put lots of hotels on it.
Right, and it's cheaper to put hotels on it.
The Houthis are like a crappy property that you buy it and you put lots of hotels there.
They're like an Econo Lodge.
Right. Well, Trump
Yeah.
would understand that. Then he's into real estate. Can't he
Yeah.
just get it? I mean, so basically the address for the Houthis is Iran, and Iran's address for the talks now is Russia. And Russia's involved in a war in Ukraine, and the Trump administration wants that to stop. So this is all connected.
Right, it's like a hexagon, I guess. I
Right.
would say a triangle, but so which hotel are they all going to meet in to discuss it? A Marriott? What do you think?
Or Radisson.
Radisson. Maybe if they have
Is that
a
considered
point.
better?
Yeah, Radisson is nice.
And then there's Hyatt.
Yes, those are all higher level business
Hyatt
style.
Hyatt has several levels, though,
Oh.
right? Isn't there like the Regency? Aren't there like isn't some of the Hyatts kind of like déclassé, but some are really good?
I think a regular Hyatt is at least 3 stars, but then there are, I guess, Hyatt Regencies, and they're more oriented toward higher end travelers.
So it's not the Comfort Inn.
Oh, it's not the Comfort Inn, but the Comfort Inn is also not like the days. Sorry, what is it? The 8 Days Inn? That's what it used to be called. Super 8.
Super 8.
8. And I mentioned the Econo Lodge.
What was the one that had the "We'll leave the light on for you" jingle?
Oh, I don't know. Howard Johnson?
One of them.
I don't
Yeah,
know. They
that
had the
one
good
was-
ice cream. They had the Hojos.
Right.
I'm really dating myself here.
Yeah, that's not Hyatt level.
No, that's not high level. But Marriott is, and the Waldorf. Well, that's just like a legendary hotel. So I don't think they'll be meeting at the Waldorf. I don't think that the Houthis are couth enough for the Waldorf. Do you? They'd come into the lobby and create a scene. It would be anarchy.
Well, they don't. Yeah, they always kind of dress like this peasant warriors with scimitars and stuff.
It would be a ruckus.
And yet they, oddly enough, are able to build ballistic missiles. It's a bit.
Did they build them really? I mean, weren't they just shipped in? Did they? I just can't see them doing that.
It's mysterious.
It's all very mysterious.
Except the mystery. Now let's move on. Just one.
Okay.
Second. Speaking of something that's not mysterious.
Yeah.
Well, it's the big elephant in the room we didn't discuss because we mentioned Houthis, Iran,
Yeah.
nuclear program, Russia, bad,
Right.
Russia, Ukraine. But then that's like a big crescent of badness.
Yes.
And then in the part that's between all that is a country. I think it's called. Is it Syria?
Suriname?
No, Syria. It's a country
It's serious.
It's a serious country, and it's north of Israel. It's close
Yes,
to
it is.
Lebanon. It's kind of sandwiched. If Iraq and Turkey were 2 pieces of rye bread,
Oh, rye
it
is
would
good.
be like all that.
Pumpernickel.
What do they put on a Reuben? It'd be all that meat in the middle.
Who's the mustard in that sandwich?
The mustard is the American troops backing the Syrian Democratic Forces because
Well
it's only a small
done.
number of them.
That was a very quick answer. That was well done. Yes. So Israel, has been bombing their installations and.
So on December 8th, 2024, the Assad regime evaporated, and the Assads ran away to Moscow.
In the dead of night.
Yeah, and then Syria was taken over by this group called the Hayat Tahrir al, which then created a transition government on March 31st, in which they created like new ministries and all the things you'd expect in a government, you know, like a minister of sports and information and the garment workers and tariffs.
You know, the most important.
Yeah, I'm sure, by the way, the Trump administration has slapped tariffs on Syria, even though there's nothing being exported to America from Syria.
He's like, America will be a humongous leader in Syria. Exactly. Huge. I know. There's nothing that he won't do.
So it's tariffs on nothing. But anyway, the point is that Syria is a big piece on the board that's up for grabs. It has a new government, but Israel doesn't want, you know, what they say, nature abhors a vacuum. Does not want the Turkey to jump into the vacuum of the Reuben sandwich between Turkey and Iraq.
Yeah, they would love to jump into that sandwich. They want to be the meat in that sandwich.
Well, they could literally just put turkey in it.
That's such a good one.
It's one of the few countries, by the way, that's named after a meat, right?
Yeah, I can't think of any other.
There's not like Tajika beef stand.
Is there a roast beef?
There's not a country after chicken.
Chicken.
Or potato or lox.
Lox. I learned over Shabbat that Liverpudlians, people from Liverpool will say, chicken.
Is that how they say it?
Yeah.
That's funny. Liverpudlians.
Lilliputians.
Antipodian people.
Right.
Anyways, the whole point about Syria.
So Turkey wants to, you know, create another Ottoman foothold, and Israel does not want that to happen in Syria.
Does that keep you up at night that the Assad regime in Iran might be replaced by a big fat Turkish challenge to Israel in the north?
I mean, they are a member of NATO, so it's not great, but I don't know. Erdogan strikes me as a madman. But how many resources does he have at his fingertips? Does he have the backing of his public? And who are his allies? And how powerful is he? That's the question. So I like a comfortable distance from him, that's for sure. It's clear he hates us.
Right. I mean, Turkey is a member of NATO.
Right.
I don't know, 80 million people or so. They have a pretty big army. They have something like 250 F-16s. I looked this up today, actually. Israel has 60 or 80 or something. I don't know, whatever. Obviously, Israel's
But they have a big
smaller.
landmass, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Turkey's a big landmass between east and west.
Right. Used to be the gateway to the west from the east, but these days it's debatable. Yeah. And
they don't like Israel. I mean, the leadership is very hostile.
Yeah.
I think that everyone has compared Israel to Nazi Germany and to Hitler or something like that, which is not, I think, nice.
Not very nice.
It's not the kind of conversation you expect at a cocktail party.
That's not a bridge building sort of exercise. Not a trust fall. Yeah.
No, it's not. So it's unacceptable.
Yeah. I guess it's unacceptable, but I don't think that bothers him very much. I think he just wants to get in there and,
So that's the question. Let's say
I don't think niceties concern him.
Well, let's say you're Syria and you're Mohammed Jalani and you've just taken over power and you're trying to rebuild your country, and then the Turks are saying, "Well, listen, could we get some air bases in this?" And then the Israelis are bombing you. Well, what would you be inclined to do then?
Would you trust the young Turks? I don't know. I guess you would sort of ally with the Turks, at least in name only, and do some actions together. But I don't know if I'd fully trust them. But how strong is Giuliani actually? I mean,
well, that's the question, though. By bombing them, is it going to push the Syrians, the new leadership, into the Turkish camp? What I mean is have the opposite effect of what you'd like.
Right. But I think Israel just is trying to just destroy everything, so that way they won't have anything at their fingertips. They'll be completely weak. So Turkey can come in, but they'd have to bring their own infrastructure. I don't really know, honestly. I think it's hard to say. I don't think them bombing Syria is a bad thing. Take out those installations, Get in the wrong hands, that would not be good on our border. I want Carmone. I want it united. I want our ski resort.
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
When Israel went into Syria on December 8th and grabbed a little bit of the buffer zone,
right.
One thing that Israel got was, besides a totally empty buffer zone of nothingness, is a part of the mountain, the top part of the Hermon.
Very high part, yeah.
Because previous to that, Israel just owned some parts of the side.
Right.
And now we got the top.
Got the apex.
So that's a win. I mean,
that is.
Now we can extend the ski resort.
Our dominion.
build a Hyatt up there, maybe, or a few hotels up there.
Yeah, no crappy hotels up there.
No,
Yeah.
so that could be it. So there's a win there.
There's definitely a win there as long as we hold on to it and we don't give it away like we've been known to give away other territory. But yeah, that would be a win. And I don't know, Turkey's been saying bad things about us for a very long time. Have they really done anything aggressive toward us besides just make it very uncomfortable for Israelis to be tourists in their country?
Well, what about that whole Marvi Marmara thing?
Yes, that was irritating.
That wasn't. They had the Turks
flotilla.
Right,
Yeah.
they had a flotilla of boats that they tried to get to Gaza, one of which
Yeah.
was like a refitted cruise ship from the 60s.
Shuffleboard
Yeah.
on the Lido deck.
Was
Yeah.
it full of a bunch of guys with beards that looked like they were just recruited from Hamas or something?
No, but there was a Nobel laureate on board or something.
Yeah,
They all thought they were doing great.
Yeah, but that's a
things.
typical like Muslim Brotherhood Hamas thing. Is you have a bunch of mean, horrible people below decks and steerage, and on the top part, it's all this like Nobel laureates and all this sweet people and human
really
rights people.
sweet, huh? Yeah.
Right.
They think they're doing a good thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's usually. I'm just saying that's the usual
Right.
Hamas.
Window dressing.
Yeah, it's just that because they call it astroturfing or whatever, where you kind of just put something lipstick on the top and then
On a
it's-
pig. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they don't. The Hamas probably doesn't eat a lot of pigs, but in a sense,
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
right. So that's what
Yeah.
they. Yeah, Hamas is like a vicious crocodile, and it's like lipstick on a crocodile.
By the way, what is the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? I don't know.
Florida alligator. Alligators live in Florida,
Right.
and crocodiles live wherever that guy. What's his name? Steve Irwin. lives.
Dundee,
Yeah,
Australia.
it's Australia.
I think there's also small alligators or crocodiles in Israel. I've seen
Well, they
them.
have. There's even places I think named like the River of Crocodile. I
Right.
think they might.
Haninim, yeah.
Yes, but I think they might be technically caimans or something. Some other type of creature that's similar.
Perhaps an iguana.
Yeah, I mean they're not. I don't think they live there anymore.
No, I mean, I remember as a kid going up north and going to a nice park and seeing these little crocodiles and being very taken with them. I don't know. They had them in some reserve.
This happened in real life, or
It
was
happened
a
in
dream?
real life when I was 9 years old. It wasn't a dream.
Maybe they eat those like weird bouncing rats that live in the north. What are those? Those
No,
weird
not the hedgehogs. Those are adorable.
No, hedgehogs are cute. There's another type of creature that lives in the north that these like round, fat
Oh,
things.
this desert
They
creature.
look the size of a football with legs, and they kind of bounce along.
Oh my God, Israel has such funny creatures.
I would be surprised that you saw any types of crocodiles in the wild.
Maybe they were imported. They weren't in the wild. They were very much being in not a cage, I would say, but in a reserve where people could pay admission and see them. So young me was very impressed.
Right, that's part of how they get you when they try to get you to Aliyah. They say things like, well, we have crocodiles. And you're like, really, crocodiles? And then people come and they're like, there are no crocodiles in Israel. This is a scam.
There are porcupines. Oh my God, there was one in my backyard. I found it very frightening, even though they're gentle creatures, supposedly. But yeah.
So speaking of things that don't exist,
Or that exists, but
we have a small segment about that, which we call...
a very important segment about no one cares about Algeria.
Yeah, it's no one cares about Algeria, and we have that segment every time because we try really hard.
To find something to care about, to find something of note.
News at all.
But with the tariffs, however,
Tariffs.
did Algeria get a tariff?
I read that Algeria has the highest tariffs in all of North Africa. Now, that being said, can you name all the countries in North Africa?
The reason I might be able to is because we were discussing this, but the ones I automatically named, obvious, were Tunisia, Morocco. Then I saw the Western Sahara, Egypt. Is that considered North Africa?
Is it considered a country?
Egypt?
Oh, no, sorry, Western Sahara. It's
Yeah,
not a
I don't know.
country.
That's what I saw.
If there's a Western Sahara, comes along Eastern Sahara.
That's a great question. How come there's South Sudan and not North Sudan?
There is. That's the other part of Sudan.
But do
It's
people
like
call it North Sudan?
It's like North Macedonia, and then the other part of Macedonia is in Greece.
Okay, right. But they don't explicitly say.
Okay, wait a second.
Okay, wait. We're getting North Africa.
Yeah.
You brought up Chad and Mali.
No, wait. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't
Wait,
know.
there's you were listing the countries.
Okay, so Tunisia, Morocco, Western Sahara, Egypt, Dana. Who else?
Da Nang? No.
Da Nang. No, I said don't know in a very fake British
Okay,
way.
Tunisia, Libya, Egypt,
Oh, Libya.
Morocco, Algeria,
Right.
Mauritania, maybe, I don't know, or Chad, Mali, Sudan.
Yeah, something like that. I think
Right.
there's only 7 countries.
Two
there,
of them
though.
are named after people, Chad and Mali.
Right. They're buds.
Right, they're the kind of people that would be like in like a high school in California would be like very typical names, I think.
Yeah, he'd be a jock, she'd be a cheerleader.
Right, and so then the rest of North Africa has obviously is not named after people. So Algeria is the big one. It's I think probably the biggest state in North Africa, and
But
now has the highest tariffs.
remarkable. The highest tariff in North Africa.
So why did Trump put high tariffs on them? What does Algeria export to America?
Maybe they export nothing, and Trump is trying to see what they can actually do.
Well, wouldn't that
Trump is challenging them.
that wouldn't why would that encourage them to export things?
I don't know. My thinking isn't linear when it comes to Algeria. It's just they do not.
Wait, don't they have oil?
Probably, but they don't have like canola oil they export to America.
Don't they export misery?
Algerian style misery, 17% VAT tax.
Right, and now it's more expensive.
I know. I prefer my misery taxless.
So basically we did our research, and the only thing we could find out about Algeria
They're probably
since
still
the last time is the
fighting with
tariffs.
France, I imagine. But do you think they'll have an Algerian Tea Party?
What? Because they're angry at America?
Yeah, for tariffs.
Yeah. Well, what would they get rid of? McDonald's McRib or something?
I don't know. They might have Algerian style tea that they're just pissed. They'll do it in a great show of anger.
Well, that's an interesting question. Was it the Tea Party was it about tariffs?
Or was taxes on their own from the crown? It
Wait,
was British tea?
No taxation without representation.
Representation.
But there was something called the stamp tax. I
Right.
think you had to get these stamps to sell things or something, and it was the tea or something that then was more expensive because of it. So
Right. People got tired of the taxes from the crown being Great
Right.
Britain, so they decided to.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
interesting because America that led directly kind of to the Revolutionary War, whereas in
Right.
Canada obviously didn't have that, and yet here we are today,
Right.
And America is actually it's putting tariffs on,
Right. So what a switcheroo, eh? On the UK.
right?
Yeah.
When America is founded by a bunch of drunken
Rapscallions.
drunken patriots like Sam Adams
Pilgrims.
who were pissed about this tea tax.
And now they're the ones tariffing right and left.
Right, it's really gone full circle.
Quite ironic.
Yeah, I don't think Jefferson would approve of tariffs.
I wonder him and his hosiery, how he would feel.
I feel like maybe Hamilton would.
Would he? He'd have a duel.
Well, Hamilton was an American populist type. I think he may have been more. I bet he wasn't he the first chairman of the Federal Reserve or like the U.S. Central Bank or whatever they called it back then.
Probably. What about Patrick Henry? I don't think he'd like it very much. Common sense.
Yeah, I mean he was. That's right, Patrick Henry.
He had a lovely brochure or a little pamphlet.
Oh, did he write Common Sense? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
That was Thomas
Thomas
Paine.
Paine. I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry, Mrs. Rockland. She was my history teacher in high school, my AP history, and that was an embarrassment. I am very sorry. Yeah.
Well, this has all come full circle in terms
Yes.
of tariffs and Algeria and where we've got with this now.
So, one thing that doesn't have tariffs in Israel or that is subsidized is eggs.
Eggs?
And eggs is a great ingredient for potato salad?
No, for egg salad.
Egg salad. So, egg salad is adjacent to potato salad because it's a food that's made into a so-called salad, right? Did I seamlessly lead into that, our cuisine segment?
Right, we do a
Yeah.
segment every time on cuisine, and I think we should discuss it now.
Yeah.
Because that's right, egg salad, potato salad, and probably tuna salad in a sense
Tuna salad.
are some of these other types of cold, nice salads. And as it becomes summer, it's the kind of thing people like to bring to a outdoor picnic,
Barbecues,
Right.
tailgates.
So we thought we'd discuss potato salad just because it's something there that we've had desserts on. We've had meat on the segment. We've hosted, we've talked about salad about having meat in it before.
Right, we talked about dough.
We talked about soup in the past.
Talked about vegetables.
So we felt that potato salad, it's a starch.
It's a tuber, yes. It's adjacent to a vegetable, but it's its own being. Yeah.
So if you had to make a potato salad,
Right.
like let's say I gave you 20 minutes,
Okay.
what would you put in it?
I would put mayonnaise. Isn't that the number one? Onions, red onions. God, I don't know. Green onions. What else do you put in potato salad?
Potatoes.
Well, obviously, I know. Like new potatoes, like really like nice tasty, smaller potatoes. I mean, you could always just have a regular potato and cut it up, but I enjoy those.
Oh, you like the ones with the skin on?
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'm not an expert in potato salad. In fact, when you suggested that, I was kind of on the fence about it because I'm like, I don't really know very much about potato salad beyond, if it's offered, I'll sometimes take a spoonful of it and that's it.
Yeah. No.
Tell me, Seth, what is so alluring about potato salad?
I think it's a fun thing to have. It's an excuse to put a massive amount of mayonnaise on something.
Right, which people love to do.
Yeah. So I don't know. The way I make it, and I think there's a few derivations of it, is to first of all you've got to take the potatoes. That I don't really like using the ones with the skin on those little ones. I like to take big potatoes,
Yeah.
peel them, and then cut them into big rough chunks.
Right.
And boil them for, I don't know, whatever it takes until they're done, 20, 30 minutes or whatever.
Right.
Or simmer.
Right.
And then you take them out and dry them off or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you chuck them in a giant bowl with, one way to do it is just to go super simple and just do a huge amount of mayonnaise and a bunch of potatoes and salt and pepper, and that's kind of it.
Lemon juice, maybe? Parsley?
So that's another additions. And then another nice one is to do just a whole bunch of dill.
Yes, that would be delicious.
Yeah, like massive amounts of dill, some mayo, a bunch of potatoes, and so again, kind of simple. Like it's like potatoes plus one or two ingredients. It's like
the dill really elevates the potato, and that.
Oh yeah, it's a nice combination.
Dill in anything elevates it.
And then there's these more complicated ones, as you mentioned, like onions, a bit of garlic, some parsley.
Right.
You could even chop up a bit of pickles. You could put mustard in.
Pickle is amazing with it.
Right? Yeah, a little bit of mustard in there, like that grainy mustard.
Yes, French mustard.
And maybe capers, for instance.
I was thinking that, but I was afraid you'd sneer at me.
Yeah, no. So I think that's one of the options as well.
Right, that is a good option. Yeah, it kind of screams summer or spring to me. Potato salad, it's a cold dish. You can easily make it.
What about something more exotic, like potatoes, with like sun-dried tomatoes and pesto?
That sounds delicious, but more like a baked potato or a mashed potato.
Right. And you were mentioning the idea of sticking like some eggs in an egg salad, but I mean, I think you could take hard-boiled eggs and like chop that up a bit and chuck that in as well.
Right, so it won't just be a carb, it'll be protein as well. So that would be very tasty. I think that would go very well together.
Yeah, and then also maybe some prosciutto or some meat.
Right, maybe.
Salted
Seth,
cured meats.
you love the meat, so you got to throw in the meat.
Yeah, and maybe some cold steak as well.
Right. Maybe a steak salad with a potato thrown in. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the Potato Museum in Idaho, which makes sense, Idaho potatoes, and apparently it's like the greatest museum ever. And then there's a giant model of a potato when you come up there, and then they have the best part is the cafe where you eat potatoes. So
it's in Idaho.
It's in Idaho, which makes total sense. And then you could get French fries, baked potato, all the other kinds of potatoes, I guess.
Right. I mean, a potato is one of those things. It's like that Forrest Gump episode.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's a huge number of things.
Right, a potato. But what were you going to say, Forrest Gump? What about it?
Oh, no, just that there's that line in there about, like, he's like gumbo shrimp, fried shrimp, shrimp this, shrimp that. I'm just saying potato is one of those things.
Potato, right. Potato gumbo.
You could do a lot of different
Potato
things.
bisque.
By the way, you mentioned hash browns.
Yes, and I know that you're quite taken with them.
No, I love hash browns. I just think they're really hard to make.
Why? They just seem so simple.
See, they seem simple, but I've tried to make them, and I've never had much success. I did see one explanation of how to make them, which is you take the...
I think you mentioned the microwave,
Yeah,
right?
you take the potato, you do the thing where you shave it, and then you squeeze the water out in a cheesecloth, and then you chuck it in a microwave for a few minutes, and that parboils it kind of, and then you fry it like a latke.
I don't know. Wouldn't you want to just like mash the potatoes and then fry them? Wouldn't that be a hash brown? I mean... especially with fried onions, that would be delicious. I don't know if that's specifically a hash brown.
What's the difference? Have you ever heard that Swiss dish called a roasty?
No. Oh yes, I've seen them here in Israel at some breakfast places.
Right. It's also just a bunch of potato that's been like sitting in a pan like with lots of butter or something for like an hour.
And it's beautifully burned.
Yeah, and then they put like a bunch of cheese on it and stuff.
What could be bad about that, right?
Right. It's a win. I mean, I don't know. I feel like all those potato dishes like that and latkes and hash browns and are kind of very on the same spectrum of things.
Yeah, but I do love the breakfast potato. It's very American, but at the same time could be a wonderful addition to any breakfast.
What is a breakfast potato?
I feel like in America, let's say at a mythical type of diner, they'll offer you, would you like a full breakfast? And then they'll give you potatoes as part of it, like the hash brown or the side potato. That was something that, let's say in the Jewish diners that I went to, restaurants, they wouldn't necessarily have that. Not that we really had diners, but growing up, my breakfast was more like cereal. So.
Because traditionally Jews didn't have breakfast.
No, they did have breakfast, didn't they?
You don't read about it much in the show,
No,
right?
you don't hear about it.
Right? I mean, like, and then Mayor Balanes or Baal Shem Tov or whatever, then he had a big breakfast.
He was in the cave with the figs with some breakfast potatoes.
You don't hear about the Vilna Gaon being like, you know what, I could really use a breakfast. And then he goes out and solves some problems.
Right, it really gave him that inner intelligence that he needed, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. You don't hear that. Jewish history is not really tied up with breakfast much.
I don't know. That is confounding. But speaking of potatoes, Pesach is coming up, Passover,
Right.
and I feel like every food involves a potato in Pesach.
Because it's not kitniot.
Right. It's not kitniot. Even though most people in Israel at this point, or a lot of them, will eat kitniot, even if they're not born in that tradition. But
Right.
yeah, so everything is basically potatoes on Pesach. You can eat a cake, it tastes like a potato. So
Bread is made from potatoes.
Yeah.
Pasta's made from it. Yeah.
they do a really nice roll
Right.
and aroma made out of potatoes, I believe. But that leads me into showing my wonderful cover of In Jerusalem this past week. I hope y'all can see it. It's a frog holding a piece of matzah in the Biblical Museum of Natural History. Isn't he the cutest little thing?
Wait, I don't understand, but that's a live frog.
Yeah.
But it's in a museum.
Well, I mean, it's an example of like Tzfardeya, I guess.
No, I understand, but they allow the frogs just leaping. They're just hanging out, leaping around in the museum.
I have a feeling it was one like demonstration, but that's a great question. Do they try to mimic the Tzfardeya plague at the Museum of Natural History? And where did it get the matzah?
Right.
Maybe it's a Jewish frog. It's going to keep Pesach.
Well, that'd be good for it. I mean, that's a good question. Well, that's an interesting question. If you're Jewish, I mean, and you have Pesach and you're taking it seriously, and let's say you have pets like dogs and
Right.
parakeets.
What do you feed
Do
them?
they have to keep it as well?
I don't think they have to be kosher, but I don't know what you do about their food having chametz in it. What do you do?
Right.
And
if you had
especially
a bunch
gebrockt.
If you had a bunch of pet pigeons, would you be feeding them a bunch of like bread like usual? No, you'd be feeding them matzah.
Matzah. I
And
don't
then
know
they'd
if
all get all bloated and explode.
Does it stick down their throat? Oh my God, those poor things.
Well, we'll talk about that next time.
I hope they at least eat gebrockt because that stuff is very dry. You know, a pigeon needs a little help. But, you know, you did not like this cover, another food cover that I had on the magazine this past weekend. It's a beautiful bowl of chili
Yeah.
that wonderful women are serving to our soldiers. But you thought it wasn't quite as newsworthy as, say, the Six-Day War.
I
So-
think the JPost should just be called JPost food now.
Well,
You know.
I mean, would you be objecting to that?
No, I think that looks great.
That looks delicious. I would love a bowl of chili right now.
And I think that's what we should go do is now wrap up and go have a nice bowl of chili.
Go find one.
Yes, up before the kitniot disappears on Pesach.
Right.
Okay. Well, it was good to have you here.
Yeah, so in solidarity with potatoes, happy Pesach to everybody. And we'll see you again soon.
Kitniot Liberation Front.
Kitniot Liberation. Woohoo. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.